every time, and it says we are disturbed. The we thing, I can't speak for other people, but I need to, is it true for me? Every time I am disturbed. And there's a comma. No matter what the cause, comma, there is something wrong with, it says us, me. There is something wrong with me, period. Aloha, Alex here, and with the topic, learning from mistakes. I don't even know where this is going to go, because the parentheses says progress rather than perfection, which is a quote that is from the book of Alcoholics Anonymous. It was used in a discussion I was at earlier. The reason I don't know where this is going to go, even though I have notes, is because I've been making the same mistake over and over again my whole life. It's the judgment. For me, I was with a group of people that listened to a 12-minute podcast this morning, someone speaking about addiction. And afterwards, everyone else was talking about how much they liked it. I didn't like it. I didn't ever say a word. My mother always said, if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. And I have often said, some are sicker than others, and I'm not one of the others. I'm coming up on 13 years of sobriety, and I do work a diligent program. And yet, I'm listening to people with less time of sobriety, less judgmental, with less judgment. So, what's the point? Because I didn't like the concepts. I really did like about 2 or 3 minutes of it where he told a story about himself. I laughed. I laughed uncontrollably, and it felt so good. Where he was talking about when he went to buy a truck that he knew he should not get because he was already so far in debt. It would put him more in debt. He heard the voice, you shouldn't do this. And yet he did it anyway. He already had a car. He didn't need the truck. And his excuse was progress rather than perfection. And so he went to his mentor, and his mentor said, well, you got the not perfection down, but I wouldn't call it progress. And why? Why did I howl? Because of how I could relate to his experience. It's about the experience. The rest was, you should do this, you should do that. If you do this, then you do that. He was talking conceptually, not experientially. And I just can't connect to concepts. In the book of Alcoholics Anonymous, it could be considered there are plenty concepts in there. Sure. I wouldn't call it predicament. I would say my place, my position, is to not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Now, I have studied that book intensely. There's another book called The 12 and 12. I've also studied that book intensely. Way too many, so many concepts. I gravitate toward the other one. However, there is this one line on page 90 of that 12 and 12 that I dotted line to so often because it is the point. It's not about the concepts, it's addressing the issue. At the top of page 90. Now, it starts off, it is a spiritual axiom. I throw that out the door. For me, every time, and it says, we are disturbed, the we thing, I can't speak for other people, but I need to, is it true for me? Every time I am disturbed, and there's a comma, no matter what the cause, comma, there is something wrong with, it says us, me. There is something wrong with me, period. Right there. Is that true? Invariably, that's another word used somewhere else, but for me, invariably, that has been and remains true. That every time I am disturbed, upset, whatever word wants to be used there, that I am disturbed, there is something wrong with me. Whoa, so what do I do with that? It's dotted lined from there back to, this is not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, going to like, okay, so I need to do some investigation. So what is it that's wrong with me? It's right there on page 67, and it's so often missed, but it's none of my business about. It's when I miss it, because it looks like it's at step 4, but it shows how to do the inventory that's the same inventory on step 10. That's where I'm at in my situation, step 10. Continuing to take inventory, keeping track. It's the feeling. Luke, there's a disturbance in the force. That's the point. The point they were getting to in the discussion was red flags. If I were to drink, I don't even want to imagine. Point is, catching red flags, and there's this saying, it's not about where I fall, it's where did I slip. Take a look at that, because if I look at, where I hit the ground, that's not going to show me anything. This is called learning from mistakes. So where was the slip? And what I find for myself is that's the thing for me to look at, is what's behind the disturbance that I created, and that's what's addressed on page 67. Where am I selfish? How often? But I have to look at this every single day. Where am I selfish? Where am I dishonest? Where am I self-seeking? It's the pride. It's like learning from mistakes. See, I don't learn from my mistakes. I have been judging. As long as I can remember, all the way, and judge. And to the point of where I'm looking at how I'm judging this guy. No, I didn't hear of anyone else judging. And I didn't admit it. I was admitting it to myself. Boom! Judge. Judge. To the point of I didn't even like it. I have to look at myself. When it becomes a danger, one thing I can say is it did not cause a disturbance in the force. It's when. So, when. It says every time I am disturbed, no matter what the cause, there is something wrong with me. That holds not only water, that is true for me 100%. So what I do with that is realize that, so if that every time, then whenever, I change that word to whenever I am disturbed. I wasn't disturbed. I might have sit there and said, well, I don't like it. I liked it when he talked about himself experientially. If he did more than that, I would have been more connected. But I had to admit, I wasn't connected with the rest of it. And if I would have had another 5 minutes, I probably would have said that. But I wasn't upset. It didn't upset me. Had it upset me, boom, I would have had to answer those questions. Anytime I get disturbed, upset, there is something to look at, and I go back. And the reason I go back and I look at that page is because I have a forgetter, and I forget little important things like that before the 5th question, which says, where am I to blame for that whole upsettedness? It says, tried to disregard the other person involved entirely. That's stated in between. I forget about that. That's why I have to look at it and be reminded about the entire, it's a tiny paragraph that is the whole key to my health, my well-being. Keeping it, not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, where it addresses, because then I can, once it's all be in that place of peace, be in that place of freedom. It's a whole nother world. Whole nother world. So I'm blessed more than quantifiable. Until next time, aloha.